to get out before the storm actually starts occurring, get set up to shoot video. We can even go live from the field now, and then tell Tom what it is I'm seeing and what it is I'm experiencing out there. And then once things really start breaking, to follow the storm out of the viewing area. I'm currently celebrating my 51st year as a storm chaser. I started chasing organized storms in an organized fashion back in '72, and that was long before anybody knew what a storm chaser was. You didn't dare tell people that, well, I chase storms, because the next question was always the same. What do you do when you catch one? After Twister, everybody knows now. So speaking of Twister, we got a sequel coming. It's in production right now, should be out next year. Very few of the originals will be back. Obviously, Bill Paxton won't be. A couple of the others have moved on, but it sounds like it's going to be a much better script this time around. I had some issues with the last one. But anyway, we're going to start out with some interesting video I got sent this morning. There was a lady standing on a hillside above Meadville during last week's mess, and caught something that we suspect is actually a tornado. The Weather Service is saying there was no indication of such. This video makes me wonder. It's not real clear, and it was shot with a cell phone, but I'll let you be the judge. Can we? All right. Yeah, Jessica Lynn Lewis shot this. Let's see. It gets a little better. There is actually something going on right there. And it does focus in. This was 4 individual cell phone clips that she sent me, and I had to splice them all together to get this. The best part's in the middle. Let's see. It's actually right there. You just can't see it on the screen very well. But this is rotating up here like crazy. And this also was, I'm sorry, I said Meadville, it's not. It's Venango Borough. This was looking out over the golf course. Can we repeat that again and see if maybe we can spot it? Whatever this is might be a very diffuse wall cloud. It's not very well organized. And another interesting point is that the rotation is anticyclonic, reversed from a normal tornado. Is this actually what this was? Yeah, it's right on the ground down here. There is no visible condensation funnel between whatever that is and what's on the ground, which is fairly typical for this part of the country for weak tornadoes. So she shot this and didn't do anything with it until she saw a discussion online about what had happened and decided to send it to me. I don't know, the resolution on this screen is not very good. On your computer, you can see right there, there's something going on the ground and obviously rotating. So whatever it was very brief, very disorganized, and interesting. Anyway, all right, can we go to the crossing bell? That would be on the other. All right, and tornadoes in this part of the country do not always look like what you would expect. This was back in 96, I think. Crossingville at Crawford County. The only damage this did was they knocked a few limbs off these trees. It was very, very weak. Shot that with an old VHS camera, so the resolution wasn't real great. And that's it, it was over with. We typically, except for the 85 outbreak, we typically just don't get the huge wedge tornadoes like you see on the news out west. Most of ours are fairly disorganized and brief. All right. Now, this one, I hope it turns out okay. We got one that I put together. It's called Weather Oddities, because we see some weird things in the sky sometimes. Yeah, that was a smoke ring actually from a cannon that used at this stadium, but it's just, weird because this hangs together for a long time when it goes up. Okay. All right, this is Crawford County. This was an early morning tornado warning. Tom called and got me out of bed and says, hey, we got things happening, you better get up. And this was just up the street from my house, and I spotted this weird thing. And I took a picture of it and sent it to Tom and says, is this what I think it is? He says, well, it looks like it to me. But being Crawford County and a good part of Erie County is well below the radar beam out of Cleveland. So even Cleveland couldn't see it on their radar. But this appears to be a mini supercell. Just incredible rotation going on. There was no storm in this immediate vicinity. It was now 5 or 6 miles on up the road. But this thing was just really weird and hung well below the cloud deck. And I showed it to a couple different experts, and they all just scratch their head and say, well, in this part of the country, we don't know. But back in the 70s, there was a town, Xenia, Ohio, had a big tornado that spun up from a number of these mini supercells that were embedded in a squall line. Okay. All right, common myth, well, you can't get tornadoes in the mountains. This guy was climbing this mountain at 12,000 feet and looks up and here's a funnel cloud on top of the hill. So it really doesn't matter. If the conditions are right, it'll do it. Okay? Mothership. This is the big one that all the storm chasers want to go after. This is just, the rotation is incredible. This entire storm structure rotates. And it is just, once you see one in person, you will never forget it. You don't want to be under here because this is where the big hail hides, and you can lose your windshield really easily. So let's talk about safety. If you ever tangle with one of these, and we do occasionally get them in this part of the country, keep your distance because it can be really unpredictable. All right, go ahead. Lenticular clouds, Peleus clouds, they just, rising air on top of these mountains keep forming layers, and it keeps rising, and then it forms another layer, and all these people standing out there are saying, hey, these are flying saucers. Okay. Mammatus clouds. You don't see these very often here because we have so much other cloud debris, but that's impressive. This is Dodge City, Kansas. This is the old Dodge City where they do fake shootouts and stuff. And Dodge City really is big storm country. But this looks absolutely incredible, and people who don't know what this all is, it just scares them. Some early Americans thought this might signal the end of the world. What this is all this air that has now been rising to go up into the storm has to come out somewhere, and it starts to fall into the drier air on the backside of the storm, and this is what it looks like, these little pouches. This is just air dropping out of the sky. It really is impressive. Okay, there's more Mammatus. Okay, low-level sundog. This was down in Meadville one morning. It was 26 below zero, and I was headed into my office, and this thing over here at ground level was so bright it hurt to look at it. And I called Tom up, sent him a picture, and what we figured out is that temperature, we had an air inversion going on, trapping all the steam from all the chimneys and stuff. And this caused a refraction because the sun was just right. The sun was over here behind this office building. But this really was just incredible. You couldn't look at it. Go ahead. Yeah, there's a close-up of it. Yeah, it was below the horizon, so the sun angle was just perfect for this. Turkey towers. Storm chasers get all excited when they see this. There's a little cloud, and it starts to rise and rise some more and rise some more. And what this tells us is that the cap's about to break. Things are about to get interesting. But what makes it a turkey tower is that it's taller than it is wide. Eventually, all this will just evaporate because it's now all risen, and it all dissipates. But it is a signal to us that things are about to start happening. Animal crawlers. I saw some of these down in Tennessee last week. It's just incredible. These shoot along the bottom of the anvils, and they can ripple from horizon to horizon. And in some cases, they have some video that shows it actually originating with a ground stroke and going upwards and blossoming out. And it's just phenomenal. These can go on in the right conditions for hours as the storm moves off. We don't see them here very often, but out in Kansas, these are common. Okay? Kelvin Helmholtz wave. That's pretty awesome. What this is just this layer of air is rising just enough to mix with this layer of air, which is going slightly faster, and it just curls the cloud tops over just like waves. Doesn't mean anything other than, there's two masses of air going different speeds. There's another version of it. Crepuscular rays. Storms here, the sun's way back there, and actually what we ended up doing on this is determining that there was a big lake over here. So the sun was shining down on the lake from behind the storm and then bouncing up in front of it like this. It was really beautiful. It was almost like searchlights. Horseshoe vortex. These can form in clear sky, as you can see. It just indicates that the air is rolling right there, and there's enough moisture and enough friction going on to actually form cloud matter. There's one over top of a mountain, and these actually can form rollers and can roll down the side of a mountain. What we look for out west is when we start seeing these, it tells us that the atmosphere is moving and is rolling. We've got some speed shear going on. Okay? Scud and scud bombs. Scud is stratocumulus under deck. And that's this normal stuff here, and it's something we watch under storms to see where it's going, how fast it's rising. You start seeing a lot of movement, a lot of cloud motion. That tells us that there's an updraft there. And sometimes it gives us a clue as to where the tornado might form, where the mesocyclone is going. More scud. No, let's go back. Yeah, looks like the end of the world there. I cannot explain why it looks like that, but it was really ugly. Okay. It's more scud bombs. Sometimes these get reported as tornadoes. There's a little bit of turning there, as you can see, but it's nothing like what you would expect to see out of a tornado. And in this case, this was very close to the gust front, and tornadoes usually do not originate with your gust front. There's a lot of cloud moving. There's a lot of stuff going on here. It can be really impressive, but you're not going to get a tornado out of that. You have to watch for sustained and organized rotation. Okay, more scud bombs. Some of them that are coming out of the south, because everybody's got a cell phone now with a camera, and so we're getting a lot more photos now than we used to. Somebody sees this and, oh my God, downtown's going to get wiped out. Well, it's just falling air that's descending down out of the storm. Okay. This was in Tennessee, and somebody up on the hillside looked down and saw all this and thought it was really bad, but it's just cloud matter. You have to watch this kind of stuff for any kind of real movement or rotation, because all this was doing was rising very gently. And these are fairly common anywhere you've got hillsides and high moisture. Okay? This was a wall cloud over here down out of Crawford County, and I had been watching this because it was feeding into the storm. As the air moved into the storm, it would form the cloud matter, and it would disappear up here into the updraft base. And after a few minutes, you can't see it very well, but there's actually a bit of a wall cloud right in here in this area. And after a few minutes, it formed this area. And that's as low as it ever got. There was no real organized rotation with this. Storms can have wall clouds without tornadoes. And I've seen non-severe storms here build a wall cloud, and nothing ever came of it. It's just, a wall cloud it's just air entering the bottom of the storm, and because it's moving a little faster, it condenses into cloud matter a little sooner than the rest of this. Okay? Oh, these are fairly common up here. I think actually this is an Erie shot, if I remember right. The clouds just wave like ocean waves. It's really beautiful. And usually nothing more than a wind gust comes out of it. It's just, nice stable air up there, and air that's moving underneath causes these waves. Okay, go ahead. Roll cloud, this is real common here. Seen a couple of these right off of Presque Isle. It also looks like a shelf cloud. The roll cloud difference is it actually will roll sometimes. It looks like a telephone pole rolling down the hill at you. This one, I don't think was technically a roll cloud. It's just a big white cloud moving along. It's frequently is indicator of a dying storm. It's the cold air coming down out of the storm and running into all the hot moisture air that's already in place. Okay, go ahead. Okay, this is one of the other grandfathers of storm chasing, Tim Marshall. He is almost retired. He keeps trying to retire, and they keep sending him back out in the field. And he had turned to check and see what lightning shot he'd just gotten. And the moment he turned away, somebody else caught the shot of this really great bolt. I can't help but poke fun at him. But, Tim was chasing storms in the early 70s with a few of the rest of us back when we didn't even have video cameras. You had to sketch them with like pencil. Okay, that should be the end of that one. Tom's still not here, huh? Oh, now you got to listen to me some more. Let's see, what else we do? Let's do the gust front from West Erie County. That was pretty impressive. Ah, there he is. Okay, good. We're not seeing it up here. Oh, okay. All right, we're having to reboot here. It'll be just a moment. Yeah. Yeah, well, I've heard of him. No. I don't agree with his style of storm chasing. He likes to lose windshields, and I like mine intact. Especially for TV news, I have to hang back a couple miles to get good video. He's an extreme storm chaser, is what he calls himself, and he wants to get as close as possible. And I'm sorry? Oh, he is an excellent chaser. I just wish he wouldn't get so close. Anybody else got any questions while we're rebooting here? Huh?
That tornado video you guys were showing us that you thought there was some speculation. Do you have any velocity mode images that you have from that incident to maybe support that claim?
No, I don't. I was actually about 800 miles away, so I wasn't even out chasing that day. After we turn this into the Weather Service, they may go back and reevaluate what they've been told, because they're saying straight line winds in a microburst. But this sure looks like rotation. All right, this is a massive gust front that came ashore off of Lake Erie, about 10 years ago, and it was really impressive. It looked like the whole county was going to disappear in this thing, but it's just a dying storm. It's just clouds. Now, when this gets to your location, when this passes by, you're going to probably experience a big temperature drop and some pretty good winds. But severe is usually not associated with this by this point. The guy in the pickup truck there, I was shooting live. We can actually go live from our cell phones now, which is pretty awesome. But I was trying to shoot live video, and he was following me around, kept asking me questions. I'm trying to, please, I'm on the air live. No. But, all right, what is this? Okay. Yeah, how about getting real scary right above that? Oh, there's no sound. Darn. Back in 2000, I took two guys from Ohio out chasing out west, and we got caught up in a supercell out there, and they had never been out chasing before. So while we were caught up in this supercell, about this time, the cell phone rang, and it was our meteorologist back here saying, where I'm tracking you is right where the tornado is. And at that moment, the weather radio went crazy and for a tornado warning, and we had no more than 2 or 3 seconds for that to sink in when the tornado popped out of the brush on the left side of the road and crossed the road in front of us. The guy in the back seat turned his camera towards him and said, "This is getting real scary." Well, I agreed. You ready yet?
Yep, almost.
Okay.
All right, can I get ready for Tom?
Yeah. Okay, I'll turn you over to Tom. You're welcome.
You're all right.
You don't want to do that until you've seen some of the presentations. Here's a pointer thing if you need it.
A big hand from my great storm chaser.
Oh, that's right.
I mean, he's been doing this since storms were invented, and we're so lucky to have him up here in Northwest Pennsylvania. He's quality. Did you tell him you were consulted on the Storm Chasers show? He can't hear me. Did you tell him that? I'm going to tell him that.
No, I didn't know.
You know the Storm Chasers of Discovery? He was a consultant for that. Wow. Okay? He got disassociated with it when they started driving tanks into tornadoes. Steve's a safety guy, and thank God. He does not want to intercept and punch cores and all that. So we are very lucky to have Steve Marshall. He had his own company called Tornado Tours, where you would meet him in like Des Moines or Oklahoma City, and he'd take you all over the Midwest for a week. And he had people from all over the world. So thank you, Mr. Marshall. How many of you have never been to one of these? Raise your hand. Oh, it's great to see new people. That's great. Skywarn is a program that was developed by the National Weather Service, I think back in the late 60s, and just to train local people to be able to spot storms and help them out when they disseminate warnings. So our area is governed by Cleveland, you might say, Erie and Crawford, and New York State does, Buffalo does Chautauqua County, State College does Warren County, and Pittsburgh does the ones to the south of us. So they all have Skywarn trainings, but I'm very blessed and very privileged that the National Weather Service, who used to go to all their 28 counties and give one of these talks, one day figured out, they got tired of traveling, and they were nice enough to say, "Hey, do you want to do one for me?" And I was like, "Are you sure?" And so that's what we've been doing here, so I'll do the best I can. There's a lot of material. We'll take a break in the middle. The library has been gracious enough. They usually close at 8:30. We can do this till 9, which is totally cool, because I will never finish by 8:30. If any of you know me doing one of these, because I like to involve you guys. I teach at Barry, and I like participation. So at any time, if you have a question or anything, stop me, raise your hand, and we'll just get through this. This is going to be on Jet 24 and Fox 66 tonight, so you might see yourself on TV. It's also recorded by our production staff. That's Kent. We're doing a half-hour spring weather show that airs, I don't know, in April sometime. Do you know the date? April 25. And we do it every year. It's all about this stuff. So Kent's our excellent photographer. He may be interviewing a couple of our weather watchers, because that's what my segment's all about. So we have all kinds of stuff going on here. So don't be surprised if you see yourself somewhere later tonight. Before I start, I would like to introduce someone to you, because Tom Becker and I are so happy that this gentleman came to town. Of course, Craig left, and we need a third guy, because we're old. And working these 6-day weeks is a big pain. But we love it anyway. Anyway, Jacob, why don't you come down here? This is Jacob Matthews. He's a new weekend meteorologist. And he's just got in from Elmira. I'll let you tell them a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, so I grew up in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania for the first 18 years of my life, and then I went to Penn State and I studied there for 4 years and got myself a bachelor's degree of science in atmospheric sciences as well as meteorology, and I've just been using that degree to my advantage to help me excel in my career as a meteorologist. And I started over in Elmira. I was the weekend morning meteorologist over there for a year and a half, and now I'm over here, and I'm really happy to be here in Erie, and I am excited to see what the future has for me. Thank you.
You want me closer here? I have a habit of having a problem with his edge. I don't know if you heard that about him before. That's good? Somebody needs to build a fence here real soon.
Tom, hold on for a minute.
All right, so thanks everybody. We'll get
Hey,
going.
John, can you turn to presenter mode? I'm asking him to turn to presenter mode to put light on the front of the stage.
Okay. All right, good. We can all see now. All right, let's begin your training. As we said, it's the National Weather Service, that's the government branch that deals with weather. Above them is called NOAA, National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration. So there's all kinds of levels, but when we bring it down to where you and I live, it's the Weather Service. And ours is Cleveland for Erie and Crawford County. So what they're doing here is they're saying, okay, if we could get some eyes and ears on the ground, this would be very cool in helping us make our warnings for severe weather more accurate. So they got this brand new facility. They used to be at the airport. They're actually closer to the Erie right now on 480, and they've got a state-of-the-art beautiful office going on over there. So let's see. I mean, it's just like TV people can only dream of this, what these government employees can get. I don't know. Anyway, so here's the deal. Cleveland has all those counties in gray in Ohio plus us, Erie and Crawford. Pittsburgh has the ones that border. Mercer and Angle Forest. State College has Oregon, Cane Elk, and of course Buffalo has Chicago. So there's all these National Weather Service offices all around the country. Their main job is to provide you with a forecast every day, but their other job is to tell you when the weather gets bad and warn you and keep you safe. So that's kind of the geographic distribution. And that's the whole area. area. So they cover from Toledo to Erie and Meadville, and I guess that's one of the reasons why they've got time to travel with all those counties throughout March and April to do these presentations. So that's the people you will be dealing with should you, want to do this. And, if you're just taking the class to learn more about severe weather or help us out in jet, that's fine too. It's not compulsory, it's just interesting, and they would love to have you, okay? And there's many different outlets to provide your storm reports through, whether it's Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, email, whatever, okay? So there's multiple channels that you can on what you're seeing. So here's the deal. They're over here in Cleveland, and they've got the latest and the greatest technology. They've got radars and the state-of-the-art kind of thing. But we're over here 100 miles away, and if you know anything about radar, it sets a beam off at a little bit of an angle. So over there in Cleveland, it's going up into the sky because of the fact that the Earth is curved. By the time it gets to us, it's about 6,000 to 7,000 feet above the surface. Okay, so I know you guys have all seen this on the radar maps and everything else. It's very frequent in winter. It happened last week. It was snowing beneath the band. People are looking on their phones. There's nothing there. It's just because of the elevation of the beam once it gets over places further away from the radar site. Okay? So that's where you guys come in, all right? Because radars are great, satellites are great, technology is great, but there's nothing that beats people, humans, on the ground, providing ground truth. Because people are more likely to heed a warning if they've heard that a person has spotted nasty weather. Okay, so there's nothing better. That's why I have all these weather watchers, because nobody lives in airports, okay? And that's where meteorologists get hourly observations from airports. Erie, Meadville, Jamestown, Franklin. Well, everybody lives all in between that. There's like 17 microclimates between the lakeshore and the far reaches of our audience. So weather's changing, as you guys know. And I don't want to go out there and have you wake up to 6 inches of partly cloudy on your driveway. That's a joke. So I have all these people that help me out. And this is the whole concept for Skywarn. You guys can help the National Weather Service out and tell them exactly what's happening where you are. So, here's a little geeky meteorology. There's 2 forms of radar. The kind you guys usually see on your screens there that colorize the storms from blue to red to purple, and that's just telling them how intense they are. Now, this is the actual Doppler image, and a couple people here will really get into that. Like my student here, Harrison, he has an app on his phone called Radar Scope. So you can look into and get the more advanced version. And basically what this radar is looking at is winds going away from the radar in red and coming into the radar in green. And when those 2 winds get next to each other at very high speeds, that forms the circulation. So this is a map of a severe thunderstorm with both radars. The one up top has that little curling cue. That's the kind you usually see on TV in your apps. It's called a hook echo. That's usually when a tornado forms. This one has the red next to the green, blowing at high velocities. That's the signature on the Doppler radar. It's called a TVS. So if you want to get advanced and get into the Doppler, you can do that. You can put that on your phones, and you can look at storms that way. And the things that happened in Mississippi on Friday night were just scary. You showed me an image, right? Or was it Ian? Did you show me an image? Yeah, okay. Anyway, it's like this, but a whole lot brighter. It was one of the most distinct images of a tornado on radar that I've ever seen, that these storm chasers ever seen. And I think they were looking at radar-based winds of 180 miles an hour. And that turned out to be an EF4 tornado. You guys heard all about it. And the worst thing is it happens in the middle of the night. So, another reason for you guys. I mean, you can go to sleep, but I don't, as some of you know. And if you're up, and if you watch the storms, it's very helpful, very helpful. So that's just radar information for you. So here's the deal. You know, it punches it out way over in Cleveland, and it's going over to Erie, and it's getting higher and higher in the sky, so we can't pick up stuff like lake effect snow and tornadoes, because they're right down there by the ground. So again, it's just another reason why we do Skywarn.
Tom, to interrupt you. We have to depend on New York and Cleveland for our weather. Why did we not replace the old system at your airport?
Well, it's just kind of like everything else, you know. When something goes away, it usually doesn't come back. Whether it's in the private or the public sector, that's all about money. You know, if they can get away with less and save some money, that's what they do.
And we also talk safety and lives.
Yeah, and there, when they decided to pull out, there was a big deal, I don't know which auditorium it is, where people came, like one of those public meetings, like they're doing in Warren County for the schools or wherever else, and people did not want it. You know, they told them all the reasons that you said, and more. And so time marches on, and we lost our airport weather service office. So here's the deal, you guys. The public is more likely to heed a warning after an actual report has been confirmed. So this was a tornado warning in Ohio, and they put in the warning text, spotters reported a funnel cloud. Okay? There's two types of warnings that you can participate in. Yours and the ones that are radar indicated. And they issue a lot of warnings based on that. Radar looks like there's a tornado there. We're going to issue a warning. But when you can add what we call ground truth, then people heed it more. Because, oh, somebody spotted something. I better take cover. I better protect my family. Things like that. So there's all kinds of branches and partners of the National Weather Service. You are probably familiar or have seen a lot of this. Of course, we're up in this one in the media, and people still watch television, thank God. And so we can disseminate stuff from the Weather Service out to the public. And if you remember the situations that we've been in, whether it was Palm Sunday 2019 with the Starboard tornado over in Warren, or whether it was October of that year where there was a tornado in Cognatville that hit a nursing home. Our responsibility, DeVecchio and I, and I'm sure Jacob and I, our primary goal is to protect lives and property. And that's what the Weather Service kind of thing is too. So we get on when there's bad weather, and we'll stay on until we think that it's not a threat anymore. And that's always an interesting situation, because you get quite a reaction out of the public if you step on their favorite show. And I have stepped on the American Idol final. I have stepped on Dancing with the Stars final. And other sports, like the Daytona 500, when it was like in lap 99. Halfway through the race, oh, they're so ticked off. What, how dare you? You know, and then I just say, well, look, if the tornado was coming down the street and I wasn't on, you'd be mad at me on the other side of the court. So that's somebody else.
I was gonna say I've seen a lot of the negative public reaction on Twitter and a lot of backlash to that negative public reaction, because you see people complaining about how they've interrupted the bachelorette, and then they get responses like they're trying to save your life.
Well put, thank you, sir. All right. Let's see what else we got. So when you do this kind of thing, of course, you want to be in a safe place, and what we're going to teach you is how to identify stored features and how to submit your reports. Okay? So we start with watches, okay? And I was just teaching this to my class today. There are watches, and then there are warnings, okay? Which is more severe? Which is more imminent, a watch or a warning? Warning, you guys know good stuff. So there's a place called the Storm Prediction Center, and they are located in Norman, Oklahoma, and their job is to look at the whole country. Do we have SPC up there, Rachel?
Yep.
First they give outlooks, and then they give watches for the whole country. So this is their homepage, and this is today, and there's levels of risk. This light green here just says you may get a thunderstorm. That dark green is the first level that they're concerned, and they have 5, okay? So if you could click on convective day 2, right down at the bottom on the right there, you're going to see what they think the country's in for tomorrow. You see that? A little bit different than what they think about today. You've got 4 levels of severe. Dark green is 1, yellow is 2, tan is 3, red is 4. You're going to hear about that part of the country tomorrow. Because when you got 4 out of 5 levels going, they're pretty confident that there's going to be severe weather. So it all starts with the Storm Prediction Center. They issue outlooks, and they also, when the stuff starts evolving, they issue watches. So let's go back to the PowerPoint. So you can get watches for severe thunderstorms, you can get watches for tornadoes, and you can get watches for flash floods. So if you're into doing this, you might want to go to SPC first. Yes, sir.
Now, one thing I wanted to mention is that the SBC is not responsible for the flash flood watches. And another thing is that I believe they discontinued the flash flood watch headline itself, mostly to replace it with the flood watch. But that's a minor detail.
Thank you. So what we're saying here, what he's saying is SPC does your outlooks. You can go there at the beginning of the day, look at those outlooks and see if your area is got one of those colors. Can we go back there for 1 second? Because I'm going to go to convective outlook day 3 on the, you can just click at the top. Look at that. This is for Saturday. We are in a level 1 risk for severe thunderstorms. And everybody's going, oh no, not again. And Devecchio and me and Jacob are saying the same thing. Just take a deep breath. No 2 situations are the same. We'll watch it for you. It's all a matter of timing, and at this point we don't think it's as bad. But again, you can go there, you can get the information, you can find out if you're at risk. So we go back. The next level they do is the watches. When they think something's bad enough, they'll start issuing a watch. So we go back to PowerPoint. Severe thunderstorm, tornado, and flash flood. Let's see what they got next, Rachel. All right. So the things that can happen. What makes a thunderstorm severe? There's actually 3 things. If you have winds over 58 miles per hour, which is 50 knots, you start doing damage, whether it's to power lines or trees or all the things that happened on Saturday. If you have hail, 1/4 inch or 1 inch, diameter or greater, you have a severe thunderstorm. That starts, messing up your aluminum siding, your windshields, your crops if you're a farmer. So if any of those criteria are met, you go from a garden variety thunderstorm to a severe thunderstorm. The third thing is a tornado, which seems very obvious, but if a thunderstorm has a tornado, it's severe. Okay? So that's why they would issue a watch, because they think one of those 3 things is going to happen. Tornado warning, and again, this is the 2-pronged thing. It can be indicated by a radar or it can be indicated by you guys. And as we've already learned, the public is more likely to heed the warning if somebody like you guys saw it. Flash flood, we get those around here. That's the criteria, but I'm going to concentrate more on tornadoes and severe thunderstorms. So there it goes. This is the code. Outlook and watch to warning, okay? So Outlook and watch is in that SPC. Just Google SPC. Ironically, they are located in Norman, Oklahoma. What happened in Norman, Oklahoma about a month ago? They got a nasty tornado. So these guys who are trying to save lives all over the country have to save their own lives. Thankfully, their building wasn't hit. But that's where they are. So you can see the outlooks, what the day looks like, and then when they start clicking in watches, then you want to possibly go to the Cleveland site and see what they think, because they'll issue an outlook too, and of course, Cleveland's the guys that issue the warnings. Okay? So here's an example of a watch. Okay? Watches cover large areas for long periods of time. We had one Saturday. It was like, I don't know, 2 p.m. to 10 p.m. Because it's a huge area. The storms have to get from one end to another. So a watch is for a large area, a long period of time. They're put out by SPC, and they just mean watch out. They just mean conditions are favorable for whatever type of severe weather the watch concerns. So, and I think you guys know that. Okay? There's safety tips, right? Anybody have one of these? You guys have weather radios? Yeah, they're very helpful. And of course, we have our phones, which give us alarms and watches and warnings too. But, you know, that's kind of old school. I literally have one of those in my car, in my office, and on my bedstand. And they're all battery backed up because I want them, and they have that piercing alarm. And you can just set it to your county. They have this system where you don't have to hear all the alerts for everybody else. You can just set it to Erie County or Crawford County. They will send a piercing alarm that will wake you up if something's going on. And so we have those in the office. We have them everywhere we go. They're old school. They work. Just back them up with a battery in case you're losing electricity. You know, this is basic stuff. You guys know this stuff. How many were here in 1985? So you know. Where you want to be, basement or interior room on the lowest level. I mean, you guys have gone through schools. Stay away from windows. Make yourself in the most central portion of your house. Basement, if you have it. If not, surround yourself with as many walls as you can. Bathroom, closet, hallway, that kind of thing. And again, if you're doing this, you know, just be advised that you're looking at storm damage. So you can encounter things like down power lines, you can encounter lightning, and all that kind of thing. So, you know, it's best to stay where you're safe. A lot of people like to inspect stuff, but that's your call. Just be careful. All right, so we're back to SPC. They got the outlooks, which we were just going over. The next thing they would do would be to issue a watch, but you can look at them for 3 days. Like they have day 1, day 2, day 3, and we actually do days 4 to 8, but that's a lot more general. So you can actually see what they think for the next week. If your area, or where your kids live, or your grandkids live, in some other part of the country, if they're under any possible threat. And here's your levels, and they're all color-coded. So the light green is not severe storms, but just thunderstorms. And then you start going dark green, yellow, tan, red, purple. And those guys in the Midwest have 2 areas of red for them. So there's going to be some. So what they expect, that's called a moderate risk. They expect widespread severe thunderstorms. Long-lived, widespread, and intense. Like what happened in Rolling Forks. What did it stay on the ground for? Like 60 miles? Was that about the...
I didn't see the whole track, but it was a long time.
Yeah, I mean, if you put a tornado on the ground for 60 miles, you're going to have a problem. And that was a big tornado. So that's what those risk areas were, okay? So there you go. I mean, that almost looks like what's going to happen tomorrow. It's about the same place. Thankfully, it's well to the west of us. Thankfully, what we got going on tomorrow is not in the deep southeast like it's been, but that's how you use the outlets. It's very simple, it's color-coded, and it just gives you an idea at the first level who has a risk. This happened in Kentucky, and they're just coordinating how well their outlook worked that day. This happened in December, which made it very unusual in 2021, where they had an EF3 tornado go through a town in Kentucky, and these are the tracks, okay? These are all the reports. The tornado reports are in red. The hail reports are in green. The wind damage reports before, just like they have tomorrow in a couple areas. And what they verified, unfortunately, very well. A very strong EF3 tornado in Kentucky, into Kentucky in the middle of the night again. And I saw the videos, and I wish I could give them to you. I wish I could play them for you, of these guys that were on the air, you know, like at 10 o'clock at night, doing this wall-to-wall coverage, literally telling people to get in your basement. I mean, there was nothing you could do. It was coming. And it's just humbling to see, you know, this kind of destruction and just be at the mercy of nature. They did a great job. So you've got outlooks, you've got watches, and you can also go to your local National Weather Service and see your local outlook. Cleveland will put out a local outlook. So if we got Cleveland up there, let's go to Cleveland. And we'll show you what they say today. I like to tie this in. So, yeah, hazardous weather application. So, just for the heck of it, today and tonight, hazardous weather is not expected. There's a potential for gale force winds on Lake Erie. That's Friday through Wednesday, so they're saying it's Saturday. Spotter activation is not expected at this time. That risk for Saturday is a marginal. They don't know whether it's really going to be, you know, anything to worry about, so they're saying, you guys, if you so choose to do this, are not expected at this time. It's just a level 1 risk. But Cleveland has its own outlook, okay, that you could go to at the beginning of the day and see what they think. So all, you know, kind of get your head into gear as to what's coming up and whether or not you might be needed, all right? And I want to go back also, let's go back to SPC. If you ever want to look back and see a situation, what actually happened, they have this thing called storm reports. So each day they compile these things that we just learned, right? What makes a severe thunderstorm? Hail, wind, or a tornado. So they color code these reports after they get them in red, blue, and green. So if you could just scroll up, we'll punch one in. Yeah, no, the way you were, I'm sorry. Down here to the stage. Punch in 2303 and change the last date to 24. And that would be Friday. Okay, if you want to see how well that outlook turned out, that's what happened Friday. Okay? The reds are the tornadoes, the blues are the destructive winds of 57 miles per hour without rotation, and the greens are the hail. And then if you keep going down, it will show you every one of those dots. Stop right there. See that rolling fork, rolling fork, rolling fork, rolling fork, 1 mile northeast of rolling fork. And you can read the reports, you know, trapped individuals, trapped in Family Dollar after a tornado moved through. Tornado moved through the town, at least 1 injured. So you can actually go back. So let's go to the 25th, Rachel, if we could, and see if they have anything for us. These are all resources for you guys that you can use every day. There we are. That was Saturday, so let's go to the blues underneath here. And as they had some in Georgia. Oh, there's, keep going, sorry. Oh, yeah. All right, right there. Keep going. We're going to get to Ohio. Pennsylvania, Mercer, Crawford, there's the one. That's the one that was declared a microburst. 1 mile north of Venango. Microburst confirmed in Venango Township with winds of 90 to 100 miles per hour. Yeah, that's us. So you look ahead as spotters, but you can also look back at the historical stuff and see exactly what was confirmed. Because everybody wants to know, was it a tornado? Was it a microburst, which is damaging straight line winds? And we were sending them pictures because Steve got me pictures of Cambridge Springs. I sent them to the Weather Service in Cleveland. They looked at that as well as the damage reports, the emergency management stuff. They concluded that that thing that happened Saturday near Cambridge Springs was a straight line wind damage thing, a microburst. But it has winds of 90 to 100 miles per hour, which is the same as a small tornado. So either way you cut it, it's devastating. Okay, back to the PowerPoint. So we've got local outlook. Okay, keep going. Mobile resources. Apps and alerts for other agencies that obviously would be connected, like Federal Emergency Management, the Red Cross. So they have apps. Obviously, they're going to be involved if something bad happens. But everybody tries to coordinate together. You guys are basically dealing with the weather service. And we got that. We got that. Keep going. Okay, so here we go. This is all about storms. So we're going to talk about thunderstorms first. That's a really nasty looking thunderstorm right there. Has anybody ever seen one with a top like that? We don't get too many of those around here. But to make a thunderstorm, you need instability and moisture and lift. If you can make the air rise, you can make clouds. Okay? And if you can make clouds, you can make storms. So what's the state that has the most thunderstorms in the United States?
Florida.
It's going to be on your next test. Why? Because they're warm and humid. Warm air rises. Okay? So if you can make the air rise, you can make clouds and storms. And that's why Florida has the most thunderstorms. Moist, warm air is really good to go up. That provides lift. And when you add those other two words, that's twisting of the wind at different levels, then they get really bad. There's thunderstorms, and then there's severe thunderstorms. And when you put wind shear in, that's when you really start to do damage. So we're going to go through what a thunderstorm life cycle is. And like it said, sun heats the ground heats the air rises. And that's instability, unstable. Stable atmosphere means you're not going to get lift. It's just going to probably be a nice day. You ever heard of high pressure? Right? High pressure is air pushing down. That's good. That's stable. When you've got warm, moist air rising, that's unstable. That leads to storms. So that's the process that happens. It's kind of like if you have an electric stove and you put a plank of wood on it, which side's going to get hot first? Stuff next to the burner. And then eventually what happens? It gets to the top, right? That's what's called conduction. Sun heats the ground heats the air above it, makes the air rise, making clouds and storms. Okay. Hot air rises. They're saying the same things I'm telling you there. Instability is maximized on warm, sunny days with cold air above. And you guys have all seen that. Hot summer day, everything starts cooking, and then all of a sudden you see these cumulus clouds develop. That's the whole process. Unstable atmosphere. And as long as the air, these parcels of air that are lifted, this is getting a little geeky, but they put it in there. As long as the air is warmer than the air surrounding it, then it keeps going up. That's instability. Go ahead. That's some physics. All right, so here's your first kind of thunderstorm. It's called an ordinary single-cell thunderstorm. It's not going to hurt you, most likely, unless you get crazy with lightning. It starts with the cumulus, just what I was talking to you guys about. You get a hot day, happens in Florida a lot. The sun heats the ground hits the air rises, you get a cumulus clouds. Things are going up. But what goes up? What? Coming down. So that's the mature stage, when you get an updraft and a downdraft. And, these things can reach 30,000, 40,000 feet in the atmosphere. Now, when there's more air going down, the storm dissipates. But this is your garden variety thunderstorm that's caused by the heat of the day. And we've all seen them. Ordinary single cell. So what's the risk? I mean, not a lot. There can be some wind, there can be some hail, there can be some heavy rain. It's very unlikely that a single cell thunderstorm will produce a tornado. So usually they last 20 to 45 minutes. They basically have one updraft and maybe some small hail, maybe some gusty winds and heavy rain. Okay? And that's what they look like if you're standing out there. Just one single cell. You can see the rain coming down. You can see the cumulonimbus clouds. That's level 1. Okay? All right. Second one is just put a group of those single cells together. It's called a multi-cell cluster. All right? So you start to increase the risk because you have more thunderstorms connected. So it's a little better at causing wind and hail. It's still really good with heavy rain. And the tornado risk goes up a little bit, but not that much. Multi-cell cluster. So it's big on flash flooding because there's more storms, right? And if they move slow, you get flooding. You can get some downburst with them, and you can get some small hail. And that's what they look like. You just put a bunch of them together. So if you're spotting and you see that, you say, oh, I know that's a multi-cell cluster. We might get a little hail. We could get some very heavy rain. We could get some flood if it's not moving very much. So that's level 2. And that's what it looks like on radar. These things here when you're looking at your radar. Bunch of thunderstorms together. It's pretty simple, it's pretty self-explanatory, but they have been known to cause flooding. And especially if they slow down or start going over the same area time after time. All right, now we're getting into the high end of the scales. Basically, you think of it as a squall line, and that is ramping up everything. You're ramping up the wind potential, you're ramping up the hail potential, the rain potential. You can get tornadoes with a squall line, but they're usually smaller tornadoes. Okay? The biggest thing you can get from this is what happened on Saturday. If you looked at the radar image from Saturday, it's one of these deals. A squall line, and that can produce damaging winds, and did, 90 to 100 miles an hour in Crawford County. And they're very vivid, they're very sharp, and they're known for their winds. Sometimes they're hail. There was a little bit of hail Saturday, but not a lot of big stuff. There was one guy in Washington Township, and it was cool. I wish I would have brought the picture. He put a quarter next to his hailstones, because the quarters are 1 inch in diameter. And then you could see whether the hailstone was severe, 1 inch in diameter or greater. So these things can cause severe hail. They do a lot of wind damage. And they're very vivid on your radar screen. Now, this is the worst. This is called a supercell. It's kind of its own engine of thunderstorm havoc. It's got all kinds of components, but everything's off the chart. These are the ones that roam the Great Plains. This is the kind of storm that went through Rolling Forks. You know, they are responsible for the most significant U.S. tornadoes and hail larger than golf balls and extreme winds and flooding. Supercell thunderstorms. That's what happened in 1985. Okay? These things just blew up in the heat of the day and came through Albion, Corey, Jamestown, and Sagertown, and portions of New York State, Canada, and northeastern Ohio. Supercell, they're the worst. Okay? So what are the hazards? And we have pictures from Crawford County just like this. You know, you had uprooted trees, you had telephone poles hanging, you had trees across the road, all kinds of stuff. If you want to know how hail is formed, it's pretty simple. You have raindrops in a thunderstorm, but you have what's also called the freezing level, where the temperature above it is less than 32 degrees. So remember, we have updrafts, we have downdrafts, so the rain's going up and down and up and down. Well, when it gets above the freezing level, it freezes into ice. And And the more times it travels up and down, the bigger the hailstone comes. And when you get really big hailstones, they get really jagged and nasty. So it's not bad enough that you have a greater than 1 inch diameter hailstone damaging your property, vehicle, or crop. You get this little spike effect on it, and that even makes it more damaging. That's the process for hail formation. Okay. The flooding side. This is important because more people are killed by flooding than any other kind of severe weather. Because why? Where do most people drown? I know you know. Where? David Clark, right? Because people don't realize how powerful water is, and we have huge vehicles nowadays, so people think my vehicle's going to make it. The rule of thumb is, if you can't see the road, don't try to drive through the water. That's their statement, which has become very popular and very useful. Turn around, don't drown. If you can't see the road, don't drive through it, because a foot of water could displace 2,000 pounds. 2 feet of water could displace 4,000 pounds, which is, the weight of a lot of vehicles. And the other thing that has happened, maybe you get caught up by the water, or maybe there's no road, okay? That's a problem. So most people die from floods, and floods are the greatest killer in this category of severe weather, spring and summer storms, because they try to drive through flooded roads, and the water picks up their vehicle and just takes it wherever it wants to go. And then you've got to depend on EMS. Somebody has got to rescue you. It's not good. Let's skip that one. Okay. All right, here's a definition of a tornado. Okay, so we graduated from 4 kinds of thunderstorms, the worst being the supercell, to flash flooding, hail, and tornado. So the actual definition is it's a violently rotating column of air extending from a thunderstorm in contact with the ground, which makes it different than a funnel cloud. But please report funnel clouds, because funnel clouds can turn into tornadoes, right? So, some stats for you. The United States sees approximately 1,200 tornadoes a year. Our forecast area, about 6 annually. Northeastern Ohio, Northwest Pennsylvania. Then Dr. Fujita came up with what was originally the Fujita scale. Dr. Fujita was from Japan. Dr. Fujita survived the Hiroshima bomb blast in World War II. He noticed that the damage pattern from an atomic bomb was similar to a damage pattern of tornadoes. So he came to the United States and became known as Mr. Tornado. And he invented a scale. It was first the Fujita scale that came out in 1971, and then they got more data and they refined the scale. Now it's called the enhanced Fujita scale. And it rates tornado strength. Typically, we get a lot of the top end, and so does everybody else. 77% of tornadoes are 0 and 1. You can see the miles per hour. And you can also take note that microburst had the same kind of winds as an EF0 or EF1 tornado. And you can hear freight trains with microbursts and tornadoes. That any strong wind will produce that. 2 to 3, it goes down to 22%. And they're larger and they're easier to see. 4 to 5, 4 was Friday in Rolling Forks. What did we say? They rated the wind speed at 180 miles an hour. And they have longer tracks. And that one was really long. It was 60 miles. And they developed from well-organized supercell thunderstorms and nasty things. And thankfully, less than 1% of tornadoes are EF4 and EF5. So that's how they track it. It's very interesting, too, because now they can look at a building or a different type of tree. There's one ground level, one-story elementary school, small office building, hardwood tree, pine tree, and they can estimate the winds by the damage done by their structure, by the winds of those structures. So that's how they become more and more refined in exactly how many miles per hour the winds are and how they rate them. And this is just utter destruction. So here's here's some tornado climatology, average numbers of tornado by state, and obviously, I mean, they should do it for 10,000 square miles, not by state, because the largest states like Texas, you know, get the most. But you can see this area right up here from Texas to Minnesota, what's that called? Tornado Alley. What's this area here that's been getting hit earlier in the season? Tell them, Harrison.
Dixie Valley.
Alley. Dixie Alley, because it's in the south. So these guys warm up sooner. Remember, we're still in March. So their peak season starts earlier. They're hotter sooner. They got hot, warm air, the ingredient to make the air rise, to form clouds and storms. So Dixie Alley starts in early March. We've seen that. And these guys are a little bit later, like April through June. Tornado Alley, Dixie Alley. But every state, I believe, now they're saying, well, that's just honestly, tornadoes happen in all at least the contiguous 48 lower states.
Vermont and Rhode Island say 0.
Please.
Vermont and Rhode Island say 0.
Unbelievable. Go on. I got friends there. Anyway, okay. So there's your breakdown. Red is tornado, blue is wind, and green is hail. So in 2022, there were 1,331 tornadoes. There were over 15,000 wind damage reports, the kind of thing that happened on Saturday in Crawford, and there was over 20,000 hail reports. All is quiet on the Western Front. All right. Is there like a fountain out there? I can just get a quick glass of water. Okay, thanks. All right, here we go, kids. Yeah, don't worry about it. We need you. Here we go into identifying ominous clouds. Thank you. All right, there's all kinds of clouds here that we will study as far as severe weather is concerned, okay? There's tornadoes versus funnel clouds. There's wall clouds. There's shelf clouds and roll clouds. There's this stuff called scud clouds, lookalikes, and sometimes they confuse people. Let's go and learn about them, okay? Important things to remember are context and whether they're rotating or not, whether they're touching the ground, and that includes seeing debris, and whether they're sloping away or towards the thunderstorm and the rain. So this will all come together so you guys can spot better. Okay. The first kind of cloud we're going to talk about is a shelf-like cloud on the leading edge of a thunderstorm. It signals the approach of gusty winds, possible hail, and heavy rain. If a thunderstorm is coming towards you, okay, sometimes the first thing you guys see or feel is that downrush of cooler air after you've been stuck in like an 85-degree day with high dew points and high humidities. So as it's moving towards you, the downdraft is bringing cooler air, okay? And you know, you guys have all experienced that. You know, it's like a hot, humid summer day, and all of a sudden the sky's getting dark, the storm's approaching you, and you feel that, and this thing comes at you and it looks like a mustache, okay? And that is literally the air coming down towards the ground. It's the front side of the thunderstorm. So if you're east and the storm's coming from the west, that's what you feel, and that's called a shelf cloud. Now that can indicate a lot of things. It can indicate gusty winds, like a downdraft. It can indicate possible hail, and it can indicate heavy rain. So that's the first type of cloud. And what you're looking at is a supercell thunderstorm. So we're going to start with shelf, we're going to go to roll, then we're going to go to wall, and then we're going to go to funnel. Shelf, roll, wall, funnel, okay? Where did I leave that? My coffee. Sorry, guys, I got a little thing going on here. Thank you. Okay, good. All right, so like we were saying, it's sloping towards you. And it's the downdraft, it's the air coming down in the thunderstorm that makes you feel the coolness. And sometimes if the air is coming down fast enough, that's when you can get into like downburst, microburst. So that is the shelf cloud. And people send me pictures of shelf clouds all the time. They look like mustaches, they look very ominous, and they can bring ominous weather, but that is your front side of the thunderstorm. If it's moving towards you, that's what you got going. It's cool and dense air coming to the ground on a downdraft. Okay, if the cloud becomes detached and it starts rolling like a rolling pin, that's called a roll cloud, right? Roll, rolling pin. Now the difference between a shelf cloud and a roll cloud is that the roll cloud is detached from the parent thunderstorm, so it can't hurt you, okay? And it scares you, like people when they see these things in the skies like horizontal rolling pins, they think it's a sideways tornado that's about ready to tilt up, but it's not. Roll clouds are generally not ominous and don't cause damage. It's the shelf clouds that are attached to the parent thunderstorm that you know something's coming. Okay, so we got shelf and roll. And that's what it looks like. See,
sometimes they're hanging down because the air is coming down so far that they look like they're touching the ground. Now, you don't need to report these, but it's good to ID them because what follows you might want to report, like hail, strong winds, torrential rain. So that's the first thing you might see is a shelf cloud. Oh, thank you. Okay. So those can be associated with downbursts and damaging straight-line winds. Now, the other side of the supercell thunderstorm, there's a thing called the wall cloud. How many of you people have ever experienced a tornado, gone through a tornado? So, tell me about it a little bit, okay? I used the stairs this time. I'm getting smarter.
Well, basically, I was very small when it happened. I was very young, but I just remember the color outside changed, and it got. I remember when it started raining, it was like a muddy rain. It was mud color, and then it got real windy. Blew out the window, blew open the door.
Okay. What he's describing, folks, is your typical scenario, because you're going from one side of the storm to the other. Again, this storm's coming towards you, you're east, that's west, it's moving east. First, you can get a shelf cloud over here where you get and the hail shaft, as they call it. And then you go out of the rain and hail shaft, and things can be quiet. Have you ever heard that, where people have reported tornadoes? They say, the air got very still. Anybody ever hear that description? That's because you've gotten out of the main rain or hail. And generally, the backside of the thunderstorm where the tornado forms does not have precipitation. Now, there are rain-wrapped tornadoes, and that's even worse because you don't have the visibility and you can't see the funnel. But in most of these supercell situations, you're going into a precipitation-free area. So on the backside, you get the wall cloud. And if you see one of these, you definitely want to report that. Hopefully you're seeing it from the south. Hopefully you're standing over here and that thing's going by to the north, okay? So a wall cloud is like a big apron hanging down from the parent thunderstorm. And that is where your funnel can come down out of. That's what it looks like on your radar, where you got that little notch there. That's called a hook echo. This is the backside of a supercell thunderstorm, right? You started over here, you got the shelf cloud, you went into the middle, you got the red and the purple, that's the rain and the hail, and then you get to this side. And they look like this. They look like an apron, okay? Okay, the thing you want to watch, because it often precedes a tornado, is the base lowering, okay, and rotating. You start seeing one of these things spin, you're in a serious situation. So apron-like cloud, wall cloud with rotation. You want to report that, okay? And here's the difference. Front side of the storm looks like a mustache. Yes, you can have strong winds, but you go through the hail and the rain. Back side of the storm, a lot of times no wind, no rain, no hail, and this thing's just kind of hovering above you. No need to call in shelf clouds, call in rotating wall clouds. And if you can snap a picture, see this guy's to the south, and this is all going by to the north. Okay? So your tornado and funnel definitions. The tornado's in contact with the ground, the funnel cloud is not. But please report a funnel cloud, because it could turn into it. And the other thing that's really important is that the tornado, sometimes you can't see, the lady was talking to me about that, right? You can't see it all the way to the ground, the condensation funnel, like that. Sometimes you can't see it, but it's still there, all right? And the way that you would detect that is you look on the ground. See, this looks like it's done. If there's debris on the ground and you see things getting churned up and spun up, then the funnel is reaching all the way to the ground. It is an actual tornado, even though you can't see it, okay? So it's a rapidly rotating cloud, and it usually has smooth edges, okay? They're not raggedy usually, whether they're slanted or whether they come straight down. You look for smooth edges and you look for rotation, okay? This is a look-alike. It's called a scud cloud. They look ragged. They hang down from the parent storm, but they're not a tornado, okay? And they scare people and they think they're tornadoes, but they're not, because they may move up and down, they don't rotate, and they don't have smooth edges, okay? So that's a tornado look-alike. You want to know the difference between scud and real funnel clouds dropping out of a wall cloud, or real tornadoes dropping out of the wall cloud. Yes, sir?
They call these scary-looking clouds, don't they?
They are scary-looking clouds. I don't know why it's scud. I don't know. Oh, it's stratocumulus under deck, if you want the fancy stuff. All right. Okay. So when you're looking, it's like name that cloud, all right? There's your wall cloud. There's a cloud hanging down, rapidly rotating along a vertical axis. Is it smooth or is it ragged? Is it touching the ground, and therefore is there debris at the surface? Okay, so you're checking down on the ground there, you see no debris, so you classify that as a funnel cloud. It's not hitting the ground. You don't see a condensation column all the way to the ground. You don't see debris, even if there is not a condensation column all the way to the ground. So that's a funnel cloud. You want to report those, because they can turn into tornadoes, okay? Here's your mushroom, or your mushroom, that's a whole nother story. Your mustache-shaped clouds. Those of you who say I never sleep, you're right. So that's sloped towards you and away from the rain. So that's the one that's coming towards you on the front side of the storm. So that is a shelf cloud. Looks like a mustache, front side of the storm. Sloped away from the middle of the storm. Sloped towards you, not the rain, okay? Scud, it's just hanging there. Is it touching the ground? Is it smooth? No. Is it touching the ground? No. Is it rotating? No. It's just scud. Okay, here's a good one. All right? You can barely see it, but if you look on the horizon there, you can see stuff on the ground. All right? So although you can't see the condensation funnel all the way to the ground, you can see damage being produced at the ground, so it is an actual tornado. It is touching the ground. And it's smooth, too. That's another thing. Okay. If you see stuff like this, make sure you're safe, first of all, and then report as quickly as possible. And be aware while you're doing it. There's many different ways to report. Their webpage, social media, email, but keep your reports concise. What they're interested in, what time it happened, what it is, whether it was a tornado, a funnel cloud, and where it is. So that's what they want to know from you, regardless of what venue you use to disseminate the information or to give the information to the Weather Service. Time, event, location. Okay. So these are the kinds of things. If you've got hail, penny size or larger. Now that's not severe hail. Severe hail is 1 inch in diameter. That's quarter size or larger. If you've got wind gusts greater than 50 miles per hour. Now, how many of you guys have an anemometer or a weather station? So you guys are cool because you got a whole weather station. The rest of us, including me, I don't have a weather station. So how would you do this? Can you Google something for me? Beaufort, B-E-A-U-F-O-R-T. Beaufort scale. Pardon me? Somebody? All right, so there's this thing called the Beaufort wind scale, all right? And it's how the wind affects objects, okay? So you can kind of estimate, right, by looking outside. So when you're talking about 50 or greater mile per hour winds, slight structural damage. Now they do this in a maritime sense too, because they use the Beaufort scale in the ocean and out on the lakes and stuff. So they talk about waves there. There's the waves side, and I think we hit the waves, the maritime side, and there's also a land-based side. Do they have any differentiation there? Because this one looks like a maritime Beaufort scale. Do they have one that has objects on land or something like that? Use it, see the use on land. There you go. It won't let you do it? Okay. Take my word for it. Google it. It will tell you approximately what the miles per hour of winds are, how it affects like trees and leaves rustling, like when a flag's extended out, it's usually 25 miles per hour. All these things that we're familiar with. Okay, here we go, beautiful. Okay, so if you went to number 7, which is greater than 50, whole trees in motion, effort needed to walk against the wind, swaying it, well, we don't have too many skyscrapers. But they'll describe what the wind's doing, and then you can estimate the speed of the wind if you want to give a report. So that's a long-winded way of trying to help you guys detect and estimate wind speed, okay? And you can use that all over the place. I mean, you can use that in the winter. Wind or lightning damage, they want you to report, obviously flooding, and what we just learned, tornado, funnel cloud, wall cloud. Not shelf cloud, that's kind of like, watch out, that's like a watch. So if you see one of those, it might be getting worse. You don't have to report them though. All right. Time, event, location. That's what they want to know. Okay. They love to know damage, like what is damaged. Tree, if you can estimate like branches or width of a tree, and using the Beaufort scale, you can estimate wind speeds. Obviously, you know the location, you know the time. You can get into a little more detail if you feel comfortable with the actual event. So there you go, they did it for me. That's great. Okay. Did anybody want to take a picture of that one, the one before? Yes. Rachel, can you go? Yeah, why don't you guys, because that's really helpful. You know, when we're looking at our weather cams, some of them have flags on and stuff like that, and Tommy D and I are looking at, well, how strong are the winds here? You know, and you can use that to kind of give an idea. And remember, the thing in Crawford was 190 to 100 miles an hour. Got it? You guys still working on it? Go ahead. Okay. All right. We went over that, and time, event, and this is more geared towards flooding. And you can report that too. Okay. Lightning doesn't make a storm severe. Every thunderstorm has lightning. So there's another catchy saying, like, turn around, don't drown. When thunder roars, go indoors, because lightning can do a lot of crazy things to get to you. And you guys know your lightning safety tips, just like you learn tornado safety tips. The best place to be is inside, if you can get there. Okay? So you don't have to tell them that you're observing lightning, but if it's causing damage, they like to know that. Okay. This other two-word nasty thing that comes with supercell thunderstorms is called wind shear, okay? And wind shear is the twisting of winds in direction and speed. And you can imagine how that can cause damage, okay? And they're showing you two examples, okay? Low wind shear, the rain falls through the updraft, and there's a lower chance of severe weather. You know, it's just coming down. On this one, you can see it's downwind of the updraft, and it remains intact. So there's a higher chance of severe weather. Now that's getting a little geeky. You don't have to know that. You can research that, updrafts, downdrafts. But wind shear itself is the changing of the wind speed horizontally on the ground and vertically. And when you start to change the wind speed and direction vertically, that's when you can get rotation. And these are just kind of some of the ways you can try and estimate whether you got a lot of wind shear or a little bit of wind shear. Okay? All right. Okay. So this is just more fun facts. If you want to take a picture of that. It's a lot of information. It's getting into the physics of a thunderstorm, and I don't want to, make your eyes glaze over and put you to sleep, but it's interesting if you're really into it to do more research and more study. Okay. All right. All right. And this is almost review, right? Thunderstorms need the instability. Warm, moist air at the ground rises through colder air aloft. If it rises, you get water vapor, you form clouds, and then you form precipitation. And Steve Marshall could tell you a lot about this, but he left because he just drove home from North Carolina or something. But you can find the updraft by looking at the rain-free areas of a thunderstorm. You see the cumulus clouds going up, 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 like cauliflower. The air is going up, 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 and that's an updraft. Oh, here's some more climatology. What did we talk about? Who gets the most thunderstorms? Florida. Those are number of thunderstorms days per year. So these guys are over 108 because they have warm, moist, tropical air a lot of the time. And what are we in? We're in like 36 to 45, okay, days out of the year that we get thunderstorms. And there's another maximum over there in the Rockies. And that's what it's 35 to 45 across northern Ohio and northwest Pennsylvania. And no place is immune. Obviously, we found that out in California recently. Okay, downdrafts. What goes up must come down. Again, physics, hydrometers, raindrops. If there's dry air, it can accelerate the downward movement, and that's how you get one of these microbursts. You're having a very strong downdraft. And it's like if I took a bucket of water and I just dropped it on the ground and it spreads out in all directions. That's what happened in Crawford County. That's a downburst. That's a microburst. It's from the parent thunderstorm quickly to the ground and splashing out in all directions. You see these trees lined out in a pattern. Downdraft. And of course, a very intensive damaging downdraft is a downburst or a microburst. So, again, it's review. Shelf cloud, don't have to report. Looks nasty. Be prepared for worse weather, okay? Multi-cell thunderstorms, squall lines. Anybody ever heard of a derecho? Derecho? It's Spanish for straight ahead or direct. So when you get a bunch of these squall line thunderstorms together causing multiple wind damage reports, they're very widespread, That's called a derecho, and you hope you don't ever have to go through one. There was one in, I think it was 2012, that went actually all the way from Chicago to the east coast of Maryland and Virginia. It went like 2 p.m. to midnight, and it just was a sustained squall line, and it just took out trees, power, everything else for, you know, almost the entire length of the eastern United States, from Chicago to the Atlantic Ocean. And, you know, thankfully those don't happen that much, but they're very damaging because they usually, you know, these storms usually happen in summer, so you take out a whole area's bunch of power, like happened in Crawford, and that was a very localized thing, but, you know, if it happens on June 29th, not only does your food spoil if you don't have a backup generator, but you have no air conditioning. So it's kind of a double whammy. It's nasty. Derecho. All right. 200. It's got to be a 240-mile track. Wind gusts at least 58, and several well-separated. That's like the definition. This is a smaller one there from last year. Thankfully, it was to the south. We didn't have to deal with it. And so it provides, you know, multiple damage reports. Mostly wind, okay? Sometimes small tornadoes, sometimes a little hail. All right, back to supercell. The good news is that only 20% of them produce tornadoes, but they're the ones that produce the most tornadoes. So if you get one, if you're spotting one, just be aware. Be ready for anything, whether it's the shelf cloud, the rain or hail shaft, the wall cloud, possibly a tornado. They're the worst, but it doesn't always mean they're going to drop one. Just be able to identify them and have a safe place. Okay. And they're giving you more fun facts to swap and share. You know, the updrafts can be 100 miles an hour, which can produce giant hail, you know, because you're getting way up above the freezing level. The downdrafts can be 100 miles per hour. And of course, they do produce tornadoes. Okay, so some hazards. Obviously, lightning is a hazard. It's formed by separation of positive and negative charges. And you can see these, like on our radar, what do we have? We have, what do they call them? Oh man, I can't even remember. Positive strikes, right? They're only 20% of the lightning. They're more rare. That's cloud to ground lightning. Most lightning, 80% stays in the clouds. That's good. So, you know, you have positive top part of the cloud, negative bottom part, the lightning channel forms, it stays in the clouds. But the ground is also charged. So if you've got positive charge on the ground, negative charge at the base of the cloud, they always want to get together. It's just like if it's, you know, say this was winter where the air is very dry in the room, I took my shoes off and I rubbed my stocking feet over here and then I touched the microphone stand. What happens? It's got a spark. I'm building up charge, and then they want to get together. So that's what's going on in the clouds there. And that's what causes lightning. Okay, what you know, this is review. 58 mile per hour winds makes a thunderstorm severe. Hail equal or greater than 1 inch in diameter, and just use a quarter if you want to estimate. Or a tornado. Severe weather hazards. And again, the nastiness of hail. They would like you, if you can capture it before it melts, to measure with a ruler. If you guys got scales, I don't know how many people have scales, but maybe they want to know that too. They love photos. And again, this person's very smart. Puts a quarter next to it, can give you an idea of how large the hailstone is. But don't hurt yourself, you know, in a hailstorm. You don't want to go outside with 4-inch hail falling. So what Main Street always tells me, Steve, he says storm chasers look for car washes and gas stations with overhangs, because nobody wants to insure a storm chaser. because your vehicles and your windshields just get blown to pieces. So when they go into a town, they do. They look for car washes and gas stations with overhangs, so they don't have to put their vehicles out if something bad happens. But that's not good for tornadoes. So there's always a double whammy. Okay. All right, straight line winds, that's your squall line there. And the damage pattern's a little different. We get a lot of those. See, most common type of wind damage we see in Pennsylvania. And that always begs the question, was it a tornado? Was it rotational? Was it a straight line wind? Regardless, it's nasty. It does damage. Microbursts, there you go. That'll help you do that problem in your homework. In 1905, American Airlines was trying to take off from Dallas, Fort Worth, and they encountered a microburst. And this was the first big plane disaster due to a microburst. And obviously you can see why that would be a problem for aviation, because it's like I said, it's like taking a bucket of water and dropping it onto the ground at very high speeds and then spreading out. So that plane in 1985 couldn't get the lift, flew under the microburst, and was brought down to the ground, killing many people. So that's what one looks like. Sometimes they're accompanied by rain, sometimes they're dry, but they're wicked, and they're very powerful, and they can be as strong as a small tornado. Okay? Can exceed 100 miles per hour, and microburst and macroburst, I mean, this is getting, in more technical things. Microburst, 2.5 miles wide or less. Macroburst, like what would be indicated in a day rate show, greater than 2.5 miles. Okay, and these guys that go in, like they take pictures or they fly or they use a drone, they want to discern what actually happened, diverging pattern. And I had that on one of my pictures I showed from Cambridge. You had trees like this and trees like this, because the thing came down and spread out. That's what happened on Saturday. Downburst fingerprint. Tornado, again, rotational, okay? Okay. Wall cloud can be a sign that your tornado is next. You're kind of just reinforcing through here. Funnel cloud, impressive. It's not reaching the ground, but report it. It may become a tornado soon. Smooth edges, rotation. Okay. That is weird. Just different examples. There's your footprint, and there's your tornado footprint, okay? So it's more circular, it's more inward. So you can register to be a spotter, okay? That's an example of what they want from you. Again, time, event, location, and they add condition. Okay. And the type of categories of what they want from you guys: wind, flooding, hail, funnel clouds, or tornadoes. Okay. Here, if you guys want to take a picture of the various venues that you can use to get a hold of the National Weather Service in Cleveland and submit your report. And remember, these guys are, generally when this stuff is going on, they're very busy. So just try to be concise. Hit the main highlights. Okay. Everybody got it? Okay. All right. There you go with your QR code. And that's the Weather Service website. And this is the form. If you fill out through their website, you can type it all out and send it to them. And then we've got the weather radios, which are all over the place. And of course, Skywarn, they have it in districts. There's other organizations like we showed you. So we are over here. Skywarn District 6. Okay. And there's this other organization called Coco Rejas, which is a group that reports rainfall. It's just a network of people all over the United States. They buy a rain gauge for about $35 that measures down to 1/100th of an inch, and they report rainfall amounts. You can join them too if you want. And this, go back one, sorry, Rach. This guy's like in charge, Zach. If you want, you know, to take a picture of that, his email, he coordinates all this stuff in Cleveland. And he comes out here and he works with people, works with the people at the airport to measure snow and all that kind of stuff. So Zach, I don't even know how to say his last name. I just call him Zach. But he'll help you out. Other methods. Time, event, location. And never assume they know what happens. That's why you guys are here. They got radar, they got satellite, they got all kinds of fancy technology. Nothing replaces people with eyes and ears on the ground. Okay? Again, multiple platforms to relay your report. I think that's it. Is that it? That's it. How many of you guys want to do it? You don't have to do it. It's just fun if you're really into weather. Thank the library, thank Skywarn, thank Rachel, but I do like to leave a couple minutes if you guys have any questions. I will try to answer them. Yes, sir. I'll come to you. I feel like Phil Donahue.
I'll wear you out.
Yeah.
You don't happen to have a basic PowerPoint of this presentation
I do.
that you could email?
You could find it. They're online too. You could find it online, and if I can find
Online where?
I will try to find an address for you. Just leave me your contact information. Okay.
So if I email you at the station?
Right. Do that, and then if I can find something for you, I'll email you back, and then you can see it all over again. Probably done by somebody more intelligent than I am.
There is?
Yeah, they're all over the place. What else? Anybody? Questions, comments, ideas, gripes? Here's your chance. Everybody wants to complain about the weather. We're like politicians. You all need somebody to vent on.
We live in Northwest Pennsylvania.
Would you go to work with me and answer my calls? I was talking about this on my show last night. I'm wondering, Ian and I were wondering if this is a full moon, right? It's not. And like in the last 24 hours, I got 3 that, were just.
But it's the planetary alignment.
Yeah, it's the planetary alignment. They're coming out of the woodwork. If you work in a hospital, be careful, What was the one guy called yesterday, He left a 5-minute voicemail. Okay? And so I listened to like 30 seconds. See, the ones that are really mad at you don't leave voicemails with numbers on them, you know. But this guy, I called him back, because I'll talk to you as long as you don't cuss me out. And so the guy said, you guys don't know how to do temperatures. I walked into my house and WSEE was on the phone and they were saying it was this degrees, but it's this degrees, and you guys got to learn how to do temperatures. I said, okay, wait a minute. You're calling me, but who are you watching? And then he goes in, you all ever heard of HARP? Okay, then yeah, he's a HARP guy. So I'm now manipulating the weather. I wish I could manipulate the weather. We would have 150 inches of snow every year. In Erie, you would have 300. Yeah, that was one. What were the other ones, Ian? There was a couple other classics over the last 24 hours that came in. Do you remember? Yeah, that one kind of stands out. Oh, another guy, Titusville, called last night. He was like, it's snowing to beat the band out here. We got a blizzard. You never said anything about that. I'm like, you want me to send you a copy of my broadcast from the day before? I can do that. You're cheating on me with somebody else. It was not me. If I can think of the third one in the next 30 seconds, I will. What's that? What? Keep going. I'm old. Oh, yeah, this is Grandma and Brandon, you picked up on this one. Some lady wrote me on a Facebook message and said, you need to go get therapy for your plane fetish. I am serious, because I show the airport camera, and you guys know this. So, and I have see, let me tell you the backstory. I don't want to go back to work anyway. We have a guy that's sometimes I have a Facebook show. If you can't sleep, go to Jet Fox Erie Facebook between 1 and 2 in the morning. It's called the Weather Nightcap. We got some of these people here. They're very nice people. They're not insane. We just talk about weather. We have people that used to live in Erie, that live in the Sun Belt, or retired, or snowbirds, or military. They come in. They want to know what's going on back home. Weather Nightcap. Jet Fox Erie Facebook Live. So it's great. It's fun. It's therapy for me. So I can learn how to not have a fetish about planes. So there's a guy that's part of our group, and he used to be my boss. He used to run the Jet newsroom. He is responsible for, y'all remember Joey and John and Don? He was the news director when Jet just, and no pun intended, literally took off and became the #1 station. And he has like scanners in his house. His name's Eric. And yeah, Eric Johnson, you know. So he tells me when these planes are coming in, because he thinks the coolest thing, which no other station can do, can watch a plane taxi up to the gate live and see the people come off. I think it's cool. And so he will email me every night. Okay, you know, the flight from Charlotte is over Pittsburgh at 22,000 feet. It's going to be in Erie at 10:19, which is during my Fox show. And they say, okay, wait a minute, it's 10:22. Wait a minute, it's 10:30. And I'll have my camera ready, because he will count the passengers that get off that airplane, because he knows that's an important thing, because one of the airlines is ditching out of here, and that's terrible. So Eric's giving me all this, and I love it. You know, if I can get American pulling up to the gate, or them, you know, unloading the bags, I think it's cool. But this lady thinks I need therapy. So that's what she wrote. And you know, she's like, stop with the stupid planes. So I wrote back to her, never. I said, I think it's cool. You're the first person in 7 years of having those cameras that's ever complained. And also, on the more serious side, with the United leaving the airport, I want to help those people as much as I can and give them as much publicity because we need more flights into the airport. But that was my trifecta. 3 in 24 hours. Titusville, now I'm in HARP manipulating the weather, and I have a fetish for showing airplanes and I need therapy. All in the last day. Welcome to my world. Thanks, you guys. I'll stay for a couple minutes. David?
Brian and I would like to meet with the amateur radio operators out in the lobby for just a couple of minutes.
That's me. Well, we can wait till after your questions.
Oh, yeah.
Now, the question I was going to come in on for some time, you get in the airplanes. A couple flight simulators you might be interested in.
Okay.
Because you were wrong, one little statement was wrong. If you're flying east, you're not flying at 22,000 feet. You'll be flying either 21 or 23.
Oh, wow, you know your stuff.
I try.
You're good.
As a blind person, I am beta test and work with Microsoft to make their flight simulators.
Congratulations.
As in the good old days of the FSX days.
Okay.
Will you please talk about what CAPE is?
Oh, no.
Well, let's go.
Oh, jeez. What time does we close?
Technically, we have 15 minutes left.
All right. I don't even know the actual, what's the words? I can't even remember the acronym.
Convective available potential energy.
It's a geek weather term for how unstable the atmosphere is, okay? And when you have high CAPE, you have better chances of thunderstorms. So those of you who are really into severe weather, you can go to these discussions, whether by the National Weather Service or some of you follow storm chasers, and you know, they will talk about CAPE. And it's, the higher it is, the worse it is. They are predicting like 250 to 300 CAPE on Saturday. That's why DeVecchio and I are not really that concerned. When you start getting over 1,000, then you start getting really concerned, or you get more concerned over 1,000. When you get up to like 2,500, 3,000, then you start planning to be at work a long time. But that's CAPE. You can research it. It's interesting, but I'm not going to make your eyes glaze over. And we only have 15 minutes. Thank you, Harrison. I'll see you in class tomorrow. Good enough? Oh, go ahead, sir.
In the storm on Saturday, I live in eastern Erie County,
Okay.
on top of Carter Hill, actually. I had 6 trees that I lost, but what was interesting was they all snapped off between like 20 and 30 foot up off the ground.
Right.
I've lost trees before, but not all of them in the same way. Usually you get one that blows over from the roots or you lose a branch. But
Something came through there.
that's what
Whether it was a microburst, how were the trees laid out, the tops of the trees?
different directions.
Okay. Well, it was either a microburst, it probably was a small microburst, because,
They weren't located next to each other. They were across the range of my property, across 2,000 feet.
see, it's so localized. No radar's going to pick that up, but that guy knows it. That's why we have storm spotters, you know, and that helps Cleveland. Going once.
Okay, back to Saturday, I had no electricity until like 2 or 3 o'clock Sunday morning.
People in Crawford and Mercer. Good for you, yeah. That's the worst thing, I'll end with this, is when you work at a station and you lose power and nobody can get your broadcast, right? So, true story. People like to call us and tell us we're off the air. I mean, how many television sets do we have in our television station? We got a couple of pretty smart engineers, so they usually, and the funny thing is, my office is like right next to the 900-foot transmitter tower, which gets hit. So these people like to call us and tell us we're off the air. But the best one of all, and this did not happen at Jet TV because I have much more intelligent viewers, lady calls and she says, I know you probably know you're off the air, but could you run one of those crawls across the bottom of your screen to tell us when you're going to be back on the air? True story. Good night, everybody.